Hello. In this video, we'll cover Step 2 of Assignment 1, installing data files and running SQL scripts. At this point, you should have already read the beginning part of Lesson 1, which gives you an overview. You should also have completed the initial step, Step 1, which is to install each of the pieces of software we'll be using this term and configure them. And you'll find videos and support materials for those in the course shell over in Canvas. So at this point, you should have worked through Step 1 and we're ready to start adding the data files that you'll be using in the LibreOffice base product this term, as well as running your SQL scripts on your SQL server in order to get the databases installed there and the data loaded into them. Okay, so let's go ahead and follow the steps in order. So the first step says, create a folder in a convenient and memorable location. This is going to vary depending on your personal computer setup and operating system, whether you're running a Mac or whether you're running a PC. Also, if you plan to work between two different computers, you might choose a location that's portable, such as a portable hard drive or a USB memory stick, that kind of thing. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder over in Documents. I'm running Windows 10, and I'm just going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call this folder CIS-107, and that will be the repository for my work this term. And if I hit F5 and refresh this, you'll see it pops up, and so we'll use that folder. All right, back to the instructions. So the instruction says, create the folder, and then step 2, download the CIS-107 LibreOffice databases.zip folder into that CIS-1 folder we just created. Okay, so back in our course shell, if we look at the files we will need this term, there is a list of files. There's the CIS-107 LibreOffice databases, and then the MySQL scripts that will create and populate those databases. So we're going to start by downloading this, and the details will vary just a little bit depending on what browser you're using. There's no preview for that, but click on it and go ahead and click on it again. I'm using Internet Explorer at the moment, so I will say Save As. If yours automatically downloads to a location, you'll need to then open that downloads location and move those files to the folder that you've created to store them. So I'm going to go ahead and say Save As, and back in my documents and scroll down, and here's my CIS-107 folder, and I'm just going to save them there. And when that's completed, I'll go ahead and say open the folder, and I can see that I now have in my CIS-107 folder, I have this zip file has been copied. And then back to our instructions. And it says step 3, extract or unzip this file in order to create CIS-107 LibreOffice databases folder. And I recommend leaving those original zip files in place since you've got them downloaded rather than clearing out the zip once they're unpacked. The reason being is at several points in the term, you're going to make different changes, and you may want to start, or you should start, with a fresh copy of the data each time. And so this will be a convenient way to just pull another fresh copy out of the zip folder when you need it, rather than having to go and download it all over again. Okay, so let's go ahead and unzip that. So if in Office Windows, I can go ahead and say extract all, and extract. And now it's created a copy of the folder with all of the contents unzipped. So now I want to caution you, it is possible to open a zip folder, and it may be tempting to go ahead and open those files directly within the zip folder. Please don't do that. Many Windows applications, many other applications on other operating systems as well, like Mac OS X, if you are working within a zip file, it sometimes confuses file paths and utilities and other directories and things that have to work with it. So please make sure you're working with the copy that's been unzipped. So these are the copies that we'll work with. Okay. All right. Back to the CIS-107 directory and our next step. Step 4, download the files to, oh, this should say download a copy of the file. Let's go ahead and fix that right now. If we take a look at the Canvas course shell, the file name that's missing there is mysqlscripts.zip. So let's come in here, mysqlscripts.zip. And let's take that, and just to make it clearer in the instructions, I'm going to mark it as code, and let's put a border around it. There we go. So I'll need to remember to update that for you guys. Yeah, that's a little better. So download the file mysqlscripts.zip to your 107 folder. So back over in our course shell, here's mysqlscripts.zip. And again, there's no preview for a zip file. We'll go ahead and download it. And I will say again, save as. And I'll put that again in our 107 folder. Save it. And then I've already got that folder open. So if I just switch to that folder, we see that we now have the MySQL script zip, and I'll go ahead and unzip that as well. Extract all. And again, I'm going to leave the zip file in place in case I need to go back if I mess with these scripts during the course of the term and mess something up. I've got the original copies right there. I can just extract fresh copies as needed. Okay, so let's take a look at our next step. So it says extract them. We did that. Make certain the MySQL server is running. And so there's a couple ways to do that with the new MySQL. And you should be running, if you're running the new one, it's 5.7. You can come up to, let's see, where it is, the MySQL notifier. And if you click on that, you could also move this down to the taskbar if you prefer it there. But you can take a look and it'll show you whether it is running or not. And you can stop it and you can restart it or you can start it. And my recommendation is, since you're going to be running on your personal computers for the most part, rather than on a big beefy server or a dedicated server that's going to be running MySQL all the time, when you installed it, you should have or probably did make the choice to only start the MySQL service as needed, not to start it every time the operating system starts. And so in doing that, you're going to need to remember to turn it on when you need it and to restore those resources to the operating system when you're not running the MySQL server for this class. Stop it when you no longer need it. So let's just see, we can stop it. And after a moment, if we go in and double check it, tells me that it's stopped the service. And if we look in here, then we can go ahead and start it and give it a moment to, and there it's told us that it's started up again. So now it's started and ready to run. If you go to connect to your SQL Server and are having problems when it's worked before, you might want to double check if you've rebooted your system and forgotten to restart the service. Obviously, it won't connect. So that's a very common problem. Okay, so make certain that the service is running. We just did that. And we're going to start Workbench. So I happen to have it up here. Let's start Workbench. And the very first time you run this, it probably comes up with a default local instance, MySQL 5.7 host, or it might come up with no connection at all. So I'll delete that off. So if it comes up this way, the first thing we need to do is add a connection. And I'm going to call the connection localhost. And I'm going to make myself a note here. Remember to start the service. I'll just make that part of the connection name, and that'll help me to remember that I need to start that service. And the local computer is always self-referenced as 127.0.0.1. If you haven't changed the default port, and why would you, the port number will be 3306. The default username is root, and the password is whatever password you used when you installed MySQL on your computer. So make sure that you remember that, make a note of it, write it down someplace safe. I'm going to go ahead and put mine in the vault and cache it. Hope I remembered it correctly. We'll know in a moment. And I'm going to leave on this connection the default schema as blank. So schema is another word for database, and our MySQL database server can run many databases. It's going to run the TAL distributors database, the Salmaris condominiums database, and the database for adventure tours. And so I can make it default so that my connection will start out talking to that, or if I leave that blank, I just need to remember when I make my connection to select or say use the database schema that I'm going to be working with. So use TAL or use Salmaris. So let's go ahead and test the connection. And it says it was successful. Good. And then I'm going to say, okay, so now I've got this connection created, and I can connect to my database by double-clicking. And when you first come up, you'll see that if you've done a fresh install of MySQL, and I happen to be at this point in time at version 5.7, yours might be a more recent version if new releases have been made since I've created this video. So you'll see Sakila and the system tables and the world tables. We need to create our own databases that we're going to be using this term. And so let's follow the instructions and see how to do that. So back to our instructions. And it says start SQL Workbench, create and save a connection. We did that. Open the connection. We did that. Open and run each of the scripts in turn, colonial.sql, salmaris.sql, and tal.sql. Okay. So where do we find those? Those were back in our CIS-107 MySQL scripts directory that we just created. So let's go ahead and open that. So I have a query window open. I can say File, and let's go ahead and open a SQL script. And if we go over to My Documents or Documents, and or wherever you've stored your CIS-107, here are my SQL scripts, and open that up and drill down. And you'll notice that there are separate scripts for creating colonial and dropping colonial tables, for creating Salmaris tables and dropping Salmaris tables, for creating the TAL distributors tables and dropping the TAL distributors tables. So we're not going to work with the drops right now. We want to run each of the create scripts in turn, however. So let's start with Colonial SQL. And let's see, it's asking us, it doesn't know, not sure what the encoding is. And Latin 1 should be fine. Let's go ahead and say OK. And so here is our script, and this is the data definition language, DDL, that you will learn to write later to create tables and then and objects and to insert the records into them. This has already been created for us, so it's interesting to look at, and I invite you to explore it. But we're just going to go ahead and run it right now. And we're going to pay special attention to the results that we get from having run that. And we're just going to scroll through here and see that we should see rows affected and good, happy, success messages and not error or failure messages. Okay. One thing that can be a bit of a gotcha is you go, well, gee, that ran. Shouldn't that have created the colonial database? But I look over here in my schemas and I don't see it. Remember that it would slow things down tremendously if this was constantly updating to reflect any changes in the database. And so you have to manually update this. It doesn't recalculate for you or doesn't refresh automatically. So if we hit refresh, there's our Colonial Adventure Tours database. And if we expand out the tables, we see there's a number of tables, and we could even do something like right-click and say, hey, show me the first 1,000 rows in that table. And it probably doesn't have anything like 1,000 rows in that table, just a few dozen at most. Real database would have possibly millions of rows. And look, that data has been imported. Nice. Okay, so we're good to go with that. I'm going to go ahead and close out the tabs on that file. So we've done Colonial, and let's go ahead and do Solmaris and Tal. So again, File, and we want to open a SQL script, and we did Colonial, so let's do Solmaris, open, OK. And again, I invite you to explore the create script if you're interested and execute it. And let's take a look at the output window, and we can see here that it looks like this has run successfully. I'm seeing only success messages here telling me what the actions were from that script. And again, I can close up Colonial, and let's refresh. And now I see the Solmaris database over there and the Solmaris tables. Excellent. All right, so we have one more to do. Close this up and File, and let's open a SQL script. And this time we'll do Tal. And again, I invite you to explore the script and look through it and see how it all works. You'll learn a lot just by looking and guessing. SQL is wonderfully self-explanatory for the most part, so you'll see what the data definition language is doing. And then let's go ahead and hit the lightning bolt to execute this script. Nice. And again, scrolling up and down to check the results. It looks like everything worked correctly. And if we refresh our schemas panel, we see that there are our tables. And so it looks like we're good to go. All right, back to the next step. It says, open a new query window and run the following query, replacing your first name and your last name with your actual first name and last name. And it says, hint, you can copy and paste the text into the query window so you don't have to retype it. Boy, I love that. So I'm just going to do that. I'm going to highlight all of that text, and I'm going to go ahead and copy it. And I'm going to come back over to my query window. And if I've closed that, I can always come into File and say New Query tab and paste that in. All right. And it says I should change this to my first name, Jon, and my last name, Bek. And let's run this query and see what results. All right, so now I've gotten a query window. Let me move the output down. And I'm seeing that Jon Bek completed this task at, and it's kind of cut off. So I'm going to drag this over to make it a little wider so I can see all of it. And so this query, and we'll be writing queries that are a little more advanced and fancy like this as we get on in the term. But if we look at it, what it's doing is it's got a first part that just creates my name and then puts in the system date, nicely formatted. It says Jon Bek completed this task at, and this day is December 20th, 2016 at 1:01 p.m. And it glues onto that, does a union, and gets me the table names out of the system tables, which keep a list of all the tables of all the different databases that are in the MySQL server system that we're running. And so in TAL has these tables: customer, item, order line, orders, and rep. And so this reported that. Nice. Okay, so let's look at our instructions. It says widen the first column in the query results window if necessary, and it was. So the text is not cut off. Resize the window so that all rows of the result are visible, and take a screenshot of your result and paste it into the Word document that you're going to use as your answer sheet, and label the results as step 2 results. Okay, so I think I've got a Word document handy here ready for that. So I've created a new Word document. And if you're using a word processor other than Word, you could even be using the word processor that comes with LibreOffice Writer. But I want you to remember to save whatever word processor you are using. If it's not Word, save your file output as .doc or .docx. So save it in Word document format, because that's going to be necessary to submit it to the Canvas LMS system. I have it filtered so that I don't get submissions in all kinds of crazy different formats that I can't read and I won't be able to grade. And I'd hate to give anybody a 0 simply because they forgot to save it in the right format. Okay, so there's where our step 2 results are going to be. So let's go ahead and get a screen print on this. And a really handy way to do a print screen, you can just hit the print screen button, or if I make this the active window in Windows, I can select only the active window. So I could even make this graphic a little bit smaller so I don't have to crop it by resizing my window down so it shows only the really important pieces. Okay, let's see, make this a little bit bigger. There, so I can see the complete query, I can see the entire results, and now I'm going to press Alt Print Screen, and it doesn't appear that anything has happened, but what has happened is it's copied that window to my clipboard, and now if I come back over into my Word document, put the cursor down where I want it, maybe under where I typed step 2 results, and then I can right-click and say paste, or I can hit Control V would be the other way to do it. So I'll just say right-click and say paste, and there is my document. It shows that I've done the work. It's nice. It's large enough to be readable in this Word document. That's important. Don't give me a work product that is too small for me to read, because if I can't read it, I can't give you credit for it. And I can see the query that you ran, and I can see the results, and you remembered to change first name and last name into your very own first name and last name, and it shows me when you did it and what the tables are that are in the TAL schema, which tells me that your system is up and running correctly and you were successfully able to get things started. And that's what this first week is about, is making sure that you have all the tools ready to run for your success throughout the rest of the term. So I can go ahead and save this document, and when I've saved it, maybe put it back in CIS-107 as well, maybe assignment 1 solution or a similar name like that, and then I'll upload it to the student Dropbox and Canvas by the due date in order for the instructor to score it and give me credit for it. So that's it for the step 2 results. I'm not going to save and upload this file quite yet because we have step 3 and step 4 results, but I'm going to break those into separate videos. So thank you for watching.